Rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming this evening. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Josh, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gene. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public comment. Do we get any?
I got a lot of questions, but they were questions that I could answer. Many of them were about when the school was going to announce or select the back to school plan. And so I had told people that it was going to be at tonight's board meeting, and I gave them the link to the live stream. So I'm assuming that we're getting lots of hits right now and people are watching the board meeting tonight. I also got a question about if we are choosing distance learning, when will we get any information about that? And I got that one right before the online school meeting, so I have not responded, but when this meeting is over, I will respond to that parent. So far, I have gotten 5 questions. One mom did ask if she could sign some sort of waiver so her son didn't need to wear a mask. And what I said was that it would need to be a medical note to state that there's a medical reason for not wearing a mask. It can't just be a parent that doesn't want to have the child wear the mask because the mask mandate is an executive order and therefore a law. So that's what I've gotten so far.
Okay. Somebody have a thought? Okay, thank you. A motion to approve the consent items.
Make a motion for consent items.
Gene, do I have a second?
Second.
Pete. Discussion. All in favor?
Oh, I have one question. Now, didn't they change the football season and the volleyball season?
Yes,
So
how,
by approving these, we're approving them for spring. Is that correct?
except these people are practicing right now with their teams. And so therefore, so they can, so they have the official
Right.
stance, so they can still practice with their team. We're doing this hiring memo now. We talked to the AD, and these are the people that are working with the summer waiver.
Are
And
they gonna continue working then?
they're going to, we're waiting on Monday. The high school league will be providing information as far as what the fall coaching or fall participation can be as far as practice, because what MSHSL has said is that since football and volleyball are now going to move March to May for their season, that moves track, softball, baseball, and golf, boys and girls, to late May, so beginning of June to July season. And so for that reason, if football and volleyball get to practice now, they're saying that those typical spring sports should also be allowed to start practicing in the fall. And so you might see a hiring memo once that comes out as far as what we know we can have for practices. There might be a hiring memo so those spring coaches can start running fall practices with their students as well. And the question that came up in my mind is, hold on a second, our football players are also our track, our baseball, and our golf team. Our volleyball players are also our softball, track, and golf team. So Dale is working with, Mr. Mangan as far as coming up with some semblance of a schedule, and they're waiting for the guidance on Monday to make sure that, we have an equitable schedule so that one sport isn't tromping all over another.
Have they released the attendance guidelines yet, if the said sports were able to take off?
As far as,
Attendance, as far as,
Social distancing.
yeah,
um,
I mean, as far as the,
we can have, soccer and cross country, we don't have swimming, but soccer and cross country are good to go for fall sports. Because they have decided that social distancing is more possible with those. Soccer still is a little confusing to me. However, that was the decrease of soccer is going to have a season that's going to be shortened, and fewer contests. So it's 30% of the contests. And so I've already been in contact, as soon as that came out, August 4th, the 3 superintendents of the schools who do co-op soccer had a Zoom meeting right away, as far as, okay, are you still feeling comfortable with the co-op? What happens if we're in different learning models? And we, since we are all in the same county, we are under the same Department of Health numbers. So we know that we are in contact with each other, and if one of us feels that we need to move to a different learning model because of the COVID situation in our communities, at that point we would call them right away too.
but it must be the cart before the horse as far as like Friday Night Football. I mean, they just haven't released the guidelines for that yet.
Friday, there is no football in the fall. There is no football.
I get that, but
Oh.
when it does,
Oh, in March?
yeah, they haven't set those guidelines.
No,
So
it's
that's-
March.
that's
I mean, this is a proverbial kicking the can down the road here.
okay,
And so
March,
we
probably
will
won't
get,
find out
as the
about
year
that
goes
till-
on, we'll get more information.
that's,
Um,
hey, Corinne, that's all I was asking, cause I didn't see it in their MS,
Okay,
you know, so,
no,
alright, Jesus.
No, not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent item?
Well, just point of reference, we have a, Minnesota High School League meeting this next week. And one of the issues on the flip side of the coin here is the fact that if they don't have winter sports, the Minnesota High School League stands to lose like over $1 million.
Sure.
And not that should weigh in, but that's a factor too, that's being considered throughout all of this too, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion items. COVID update.
okay, this was, once again, this is just from my meeting, the conference call with the commissioner this morning. There is some clarification on the regional support teams that we need to check with our plan. They said those are being established. We will not know really until August 24th who our regional teams will be. Our regional team will be housed at Southeast Service Co-op in Rochester. And it's not that the regional support team will tell us when we have to move between the learning plans. But if we have a situation here where we have a question, let's say we have a case and we're following our plan and we're not quite sure if we're following it correctly or if we're doing it with efficacy. At that point, we've got this point of contact at Southeast Conference that we can call and just say, this is what we're planning on doing. Does this really follow the guidelines? Is this doing, are we still providing the safety? Do we need to be more stringent? Are we being too stringent? So that will, that person will be named August 24th. And then I'll have an orientation meeting on that date. They're doing different, service co-ops at different times. And so my time is from 12:30 until 1:30 on the 24th, and as soon as I get done with that, I will write up, this is what this actually means, this is how the logistics of this work, and I will be sending it to you and then all of the people on the planning committee, because the regional support team is going to be the support for our planning committee, and our planning committee, I don't know if they realized it, but they basically signed up until, this pandemic is done. Sorry.
With that though, I don't think that's fair. I think that if you want them to continue, you should ask, and that we might want to look at the makeup of that committee and change it. I don't think we should just assume that because they signed up long-term. I think that the nice thing to do would be to ask, and maybe we need some more parents, for instance, on the committee. So I think we should analyze who, I mean, I don't think there's somebody we should exclude, but I think they should be asked, and we should look at people to maybe add as well.
And we could. I just don't want to give everybody the option to say, okay, you don't have to serve on the committee anymore, and then end up with no one to.
I don't think that's the case. I think people understand it's important. It's probably one of the more important things I've done as a board member. So, and I'm gonna guess that as a teacher and staff, they feel the same way. So, I don't feel like everybody is gonna run the other way. I think that they're invested, and most of them would wanna continue, and there might be some additional people that really would like, there might be more board members that would like to be a part of it, or community members or parents.
Okay. The Department of Health finally released the guidance. We've been asking for this, as far as the disabled students who have to have a personal care assistant. We've been looking for the guidance as far as how can we do that direct contact if we're supposed to be 6 foot social distancing. Since we have to go closer than the 6 foot social distancing, what PPE is necessary. So that guidance is finally there, and so we know what we need to be purchasing for those personal care assistants. And the face masks and face shields will be coming for all staff and students. They will be delivered to the Southeast Service Co-op. They're the ones that will be disseminating it. From the governor's executive order, it also said that COVID tests will be made available to all staff members. That's not just going to come to the service co-op, that's going to be in a database so they can keep track of who has needed testing and who hasn't had it. And so the Minnesota IT department is working with the Department of Ed and the Department of Health to come up with a request portal for someone, and then the test will be sent directly to that person.
What type of test are we gonna use?
It's a saliva test.
Okay, it's not the one up from.
No, it's one that you can, it's saliva in a vial and you mail it in, and they will put a rush on testing it, and they said that they will send it to a lab where you should have the results in 48 hours. Because we know as soon as somebody has to go for a test, if they feel they've got COVID symptoms, they can't be here, they have to go for a test, and they can't come back until they get that negative result. So that's why they're putting the rush on those tests, because we can't, as a school, we can't be sitting here waiting for 7
Now,
days.
did the governor mandate, how does that work? Did he mandate that all schools and everyone in them must have a mask?
Yes.
Because public doesn't have to.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if the public says, if a public person walks into a restaurant or any place and they don't have a mask on, they can't be asked why they don't have a mask.
No, it's the executive order was any place indoors in Minnesota, you have to have a mask on.
Yeah,
Any
That was 5 years and older?
public place,
Public.
not a private place.
public place, yeah.
5 years and older, I believe, so it was like kindergarten and up.
Anyone in our preschool does not have to wear masks, our preschool teachers do.
Oh, yeah, because I'm just talking when I've gone into businesses, probably, I can't figure out the percent, but there's always been someone in there without masks. So,
There, according to
so-
the executive order, they should have, you should not go into any public establishment
I don't
without
think
wearing a
that-
mask.
And I don't think Minnesota's got to the point, I think New York, they're finding people, you know, like $500-600 or something.
a lot of the
But,
cops around Minnesota have said they're not
Yeah,
gonna enforce
yeah.
it because they're busy with other things,
right,
so.
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
yes.
So I attended, I'm going to the summer session for MSBA, and they did discuss this and some other meetings that I've sat in on at MSBA, and they are coming out with a policy for schools to adopt, which will basically give us a policy on top of the governor's order should be enough, but school districts will be probably adopting or getting language for a policy to adopt, a masking policy for this time.
Yeah, 'cause it
That,
could
that can be something to point the public coming into the school to. So,
and
I haven't seen that verbiage yet, I
No.
don't think they have it yet, but they're
they're
working
working
on it.
on it. And I know that the governor is providing masks, and that will, MNBA students will be sent masks, MNBA staff will have multiple masks in case they do get to have some face-to-face things this year. So I don't want anyone to think that the masks we've purchased so far, were an unnecessary purchase. I think as the year goes on, one mask per person is not gonna cut it. And so I'm happy that we have multiple masks. I'm happy that we've got the disposable masks that we've purchased so far, and as the year goes on, I am assuming we're probably going to have to buy more. This is just going to become no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service.
As a parent, I am probably gonna try to get 5 masks for my kids. I'm gonna treat them like socks, and I only wanna wash them on the weekends, so, just so, I mean, we're already, I used to struggle with socks not having matches, not being able to find them, and now I struggle with not being able to find a clean mask. It's like a given, there's no clean mask. Somebody takes them and pushes them everywhere and hides them, so, yeah,
And
so.
Dave Krenz, the superintendent at Austin, he has a 4515 school, which means that he's got a school building in Austin that's back in session. They have meetings with the parents ahead of time about the fact that the students should wear masks, and he said almost 100% of his students came the first day with their own mask on. The teachers were all ready with masks to start handing them out, but all the students came with masks. They were already in that habit of wearing them. So that bodes well.
One more note before, there's a lot of discussion about the public coming into the school, and one of the things that the committee decided, and I'm not sure if it's gonna come to the board for approval, but the committee was pretty clear in that we didn't want any guests at this point, no visitors. So, that, you know, if we really want to keep the teachers, the staff, the kids healthy, and every visitor we have into the school is a potential risk. So, there wouldn't be parents at this point coming to watch anything, coming into the school, no signing in, no coming to help us read books in the kindergarten, none of that.
But if like for kindergarten, if they wanted to do the family day, we can work a Google Meets and they can virtually visit. So
Yeah.
families are
virtually.
still important, it's just we don't want them physically in the building. Preschool, this was a question, and so preschool needs to follow the elementary school plan. If you've got voluntary preschool, which we do, so that's, the preschool will follow the same plan. So before, the afternoon session was a Monday through Thursday with a Friday afternoon off. Now it's going to be a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday with the Wednesday afternoon off, so it totally mirrors the elementary school. It's CRF funding. So CRF funding is the new funding that came with this latest executive order. it's more money on top of what we're getting with Esser and Gear. I haven't, the application will be available the end of August, so I haven't really seen how much money is allocated to us, but, the applications are due by October first and have to have the funds spent by December 30th. I don't think that's gonna be a problem, because they said that everything you were planning on putting in your Esser and Gear funding, just put in the, CRF funding application right now, because your Gear and your Esser funding can carry out, and you don't have to spend that yet this year. So as we're looking, and if we have to make some permanent changes, then we'll have that extra funding that we didn't have to use right now. We're reminded about the accommodations for school staff whose health is at risk, and we kind of talked about that. We are allowed, if there is a parent that said my child is not going to wear a mask, there's not a medical reason, I just don't like masks. The reasonable accommodation for that is to say, well, then you are selecting distance learning. So we have the support of MDE to do that if that's our choice. Nothing in the executive order requires the school board to approve the plan. However, we are following that process of having the school board approve the plan. We don't have to, but we are going to. There's a resolution that MSBA set up, and if you looked into the board packet, the resolution sets the base plan, but then gives the superintendent, in consultation with the planning group, the ability to change plans when warranted, so I don't have to come back and get the board to approve a change in plan.
So if we start school and everything's going, as planned, and somebody tests positive, one of the students, which students have to go home to be isolated for 14 days?
And that's what we figure out in consultation with our regional support team and our local public health. And so that's why it's a call right away to Audrey Stagemeyer, it's a call to our regional support. So we're getting more of that information on August 24th, not October.
And then they go home and they'd be on distant learning.
Yes,
And then they could come back again after 14 days.
correct.
And then the next time somebody,
That's where it's gonna become tricky.
there's
Yep.
where it's gonna become very difficult, because then the next person,
And which is why
Yeah.
we need to stay well. Maybe we can just will that, I don't know.
So the one different, and we'll go over it too later again, but, the one difference is that the elementary school, the kids are more in a pod, and so it's a smaller group that's not interacting. So in the elementary, it would affect less people than it would affect in the junior high or high school. So that doesn't specifically answer your question, but gives you a little bit more information than the complexity.
And then the other, tier 1 workers now include teachers. So if we have to do distance learning, those, the teachers with school-age children can have them at Hurricane Watch, and so that is, available to them.
Good.
That's what, and right now, August 24th, I'm going to get a lot of information. And so that's why I will, be sending you an email that afternoon with an update, and I will put everything from that update on the website as well, that the parents need to know. Questions on that?
Question I have is kind of something we discussed before as far as internet availability. Where are we at with that?
That's, we're waiting with the board to come up with a base plan so that parents really know how we're starting school and to make those phone calls. And so next week, we'll know, after calling all the homes to see if they're coming back, if they're riding the bus, if they want to do online instead, if we do have to do distance learning, anyone with a high school student will have to have internet right now from the start. So do they need do they need any type of, hotspot? Do they need, some type of, router that will,
Well, that- To me, that's a question, yeah, you just ask that question, if they need one, we might as well get prepared for it, even if we, like, the situation that Pete just brought up and maybe talked a little bit about is, say we start school, everybody comes in, but then 2 weeks later, everybody's out. I mean, we need to get that prepared from day one, so whoever
No.
says, I don't have internet, if you called them today and said, hey, do you all have internet? I don't, we need to have a plan in place to get that person internet availability to them. So, have we said anything, you know, what are we gonna do if that comes down? We have 10 people that need it, do we have a plan in place, is my question.
we first have to look at what they need and if a hotspot would work. The other thing is put in a request to the county to get some of their CARES funding, especially for, the households in the townships where there is not internet capability. And because some of our townships really don't have great internet capability. And so, we've asked if there's some way that the CARES money can go toward hotspots or a temporary tower, because in some cases, there's just not even a signal that a hotspot can latch onto. And so we've requested that. I'm not hopeful, because the county EDA has already said that they want the first round of money to only go to, businesses. They don't want any money going to nonprofits, and we're a big nonprofit.
So you're
we're,
assuming or hoping that we're gonna have something in place before the beginning of school, cause I don't wanna wait till, you know, we're 2 weeks in and then find out that we have 10 kids because we sent them home, they don't have internet. You know, I wanna make sure that we have access to internet for every child in Houston that comes to the school, no matter which plan we put into place before school starts.
and I got something from MediaCom today, and I haven't had a chance to dig into what their option is. So it's something that, since it impacts all 4 of the schools in Houston County, the 4 superintendents are working together on what might work best, since our school lines.
And they can kind of talk to each other.
Right, and then the phone calls next week, we'll find out how many people we have in that boat, and then we can start addressing the best plan for it.
Yes, ma'am.
So building off, that, do we also know what staff members are in that situation? Either because of where they are physically located, or because of if there's gonna be in-person teaching, do we have teachers who are reluctant to be here, so they need to work from home? So same type of question, do they have?
So what you're saying is making sure that not only our students, but our teachers also have
Exactly.
internet access.
Exactly, and can what's the CRF funding? Is there any chance, since that has to be spent by December 30th, that funding might be able to be used to purchase hotspots or whatever
Yes.
technology is needed?
That,
Okay. Great.
Any other
and
questions?
as far as the staff with, internet, at the start of the year, all staff need to be in the buildings. So, because we are not, the numbers don't warrant us being at distance learning. And so the staff have very good connectivity.
Oh, yeah,
the
but
district
that's, I mean, what I think what Mike was getting at, worst case scenario, they can't be in the school. We just wanna make sure that if they're not here, which we know they have great connection, if they're out there somewhere, will they have connectability? So, you should know that pretty easily from that group of people.
Does a teacher have a choice to state that they don't feel safe, so they do not want to return? Do they have no choice?
It's not really that if they are medically, they have a medical reason, or if someone in their home has a medical reason. That's, it, the executive order doesn't allow for just saying, I don't feel safe coming back.
Right,
That's not.
because wouldn't they fall under essential workers? Nurses are essential workers. I don't think nurses have a choice. It's like, you're here or you don't have a job. That's what I was asking is, do teachers fall into that category because they're an essential worker?
Unless they've got, if they've got a medical reason, or
Basically,
if
yes.
they've got someone in the household with a medical reason,
Yeah.
that it is not safe for them to be around people.
Any other any COVID questions? Okay, so moving right along, we got the Houston High School Summit Student and Staff Handbooks.
And the, handbooks, I've got, both of the principals are here, they've got the changes. Neither one has, they don't have any, a COVID section, because they know that the COVID section is basically covered in our blueprint. And they have made some minor changes. Now I know Mr. Mangan is brand new, and so he's looking at the student and parent handbook. He would like to have a team of people looking at that as that year goes on, and really looking at what things might work best to be changed, what things are working well. So as the year progresses, there might be modifications to it, but he didn't want to revamp the whole thing when he hadn't really been in the system yet. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that, both the caution and the willingness and the desire to work with staff and students to make something that is the best for the school.
So is there any questions on the high school summit or elementary handbooks? Because this one you were covering all of them at that time. Okay. Coaching handbooks.
The coaching handbook still says that we are going to be hiring all the coaches in a slate in the summer. However, due to COVID, that is not the case. We are just going to hire as the season opens, and which is what we did today. We just hired because their season has been allowed to, we know their season has been allowed to open for fall practice.
I have one question on the coaching handbooks. I know we revised those and those processes, and I understand about the situation we're in, but there was a section in there, in the spring, the athletic director and the principal will meet with the coaches to learn of their intentions. And I guess I'm not sure what that verbiage means, because I thought we kind of decided that hiring coaches was kind of a one-year thing. So I don't know what that verbiage is. I guess I would ask the AD and the principal to take a look at that and make sure they are comfortable with that language.
Wasn't that where, like, last spring, we looked at numbers, and we, like golf, remember that was kind of on the edge all the time, as to how many people we had out coming out for golf. And not that it should single out golf, it should probably be all of those, but you're right, Michaeline, we should have an area where something like that is addressed, because spring sports does have an issue more of numbers than the other sports.
Yeah, this wasn't about numbers. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but this was more, it sounded to me, or I read like, if the coach wished to continue, they would just be able to continue. And I just wanted to make sure that verbiage was in line, because later on it says there will, at the end of the season, there's an evaluation done and a meeting, and it just was, it was language. I guess I can reach out to you or Mr. Mangan or to the AD with the section that I'm asking about before we approve this.
It's also a two-way street, and I think that's what that line is for, because there is the evaluation, there is that, yes, we want to keep going, but if the person is saying, I'm done at the end of the season and I have no desire to do this, then it's you know you need to submit a letter of resignation, because we can't post until we get the letter of resignation. Sometimes we've gotten in situations where we haven't gotten a letter of resignation, and then the coach said, well, I didn't wanna do this again. It's like, well, we need
There
the
just might
letter
be
of
a better way to
Right,
phrase it, that's
Right,
all
I
I'm
think- I
saying.
think what Michael may be getting at is if you're gonna have the discussion, then part of the discussion would be at the time of the evaluation.
Are you
Kind of
interested
combine
in
it.
continuing?
Are you
or-
interested in continuing? Let's talk about last season.
You know, or
type
do you
thing.
know yet? if-
Instead of having two separate entities on the paper itself, have it
Yeah.
in one entity. Are you looking at staying on? If you're not, you know, why they're doing the evaluation. That's kind of what you were alluding to. correct, Mike?
I can, it just was confusing.
Okay.
verbiage.
Any other questions on the coaching handbook?
No.
It's probably, we don't wanna get into situation they had over Chatfield with the, firing of their wrestling coach. And they didn't give a reason, and that, we don't want that.
No,
if
okay.
we're gonna make the
Situation.
news, we wanna make the news for a good reason.
Right.
Right.
That's,
Okay, so Houston onsite crisis plan.
And this is something new, we've got, the principals work together it is a crisis plan for all of the buildings in the district. In looking at our emergency planning and procedures, if there's an issue at the elementary school, the elementary students would come here. If there's an issue at the high school students go to the elementary school. It makes sense for the buildings within the school to all work together, so we're all on the same plan. And so, Mr. Bartz and Mr. Mangan work together to have one on-site crisis plan.
I had a couple points I read through. The first one is, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a list of who the people are that are the key people. And I just wanna pose the question, just because we're in kind of one of those crazy times. It really lists three people, the three people here in the room. So, there we go. Mr. Mangan, Mr. Bartz, and Kren. And so what I'm wondering is, who is the backup for you three? Let's say that all three of you attended a meeting and you all three are sick. Who is the person that is going to, because this is just a combination of all three of you. Is there a person then that covers for you? I just think it's worth considering the times we're in. I hope you all three don't get sick at all, and I definitely hope you don't all three get sick at the same time. But if you did, who would be the person that would kind of make some of these key decisions when we're in the middle of a pandemic?
And there are some other people listed later on, but the top part with the old crisis plan, it was the superintendent and the two principals that served all those roles there as well.
I'm wondering if maybe, does Todd still have his licensure? Could we ask if he would be willing to be kind of a backup? I would feel better if we had, I mean, again,
You're talking about just the commander position, is what you're saying.
yeah, some of
What
those
you're saying
key
is-
things, like, let's just say
And that's
that,
something I would think in the school, you have some sort of chain of command scenario, where if,
And we
Somebody
have that,
want-
we
no.
have it here and we had it in the other plan. And
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
what I'm
I think
saying,
that's-
this really isn't a change.
what like Mimi's getting at is, say if all three of you guys get taken out. I'm just being straight up, I mean, that's the way you wanna say it. You know, in the military, it would be, okay, what if you three get taken out, who's the next in command?
it's like.
That's the question I believe Mimi's asking.
yes, it's a
She's
little
not
bit
asking
more
if you,
blunt.
you know.
I was saying, what if all three of you attended a meeting and you all
Yeah,
get
but,
sick? And
I mean,
let's just say
realistically-
we're in the middle of a pandemic and the school, somebody needs to make the call that we can't do. We need to do distance learning and we need to report to public health and we need to do this or that. Who would that person be? Because all those top, those top positions are all the three of you, and it works great if one of you doesn't get sick.
Would you assign at that time? You know,
Well, and it's just to have another person
we're not saying to have another person on the list per se, Fran, she's
No,
just
I think
asking.
that's exactly.
I think
what
what
you're
she's saying
isn't it?
is, do you have somebody in mind if all three of you guys were taken out?
A designated survivor.
Who would be, no, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, it probably won't happen, God willing, never have that situation. But, you know, is the counselor the next person in charge of the school?
That's why the president and
Is-
vice president don't travel together.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Is,
yeah.
you know, who would take over in your three positions if all three of you guys were gone?
Except in those,
If that, it's,
in those first positions,
right,
it would have to be someone that had the training for it and somebody who
That's-
actually knew what was going on at
Exactly.
that same time.
so,
No, Todd has had the training, however, he is now in the classroom, he hasn't been attending
I'm
the
not saying
meetings.
we necessarily have to put them on the list per se. I think the question is, would that be available, right? You know what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe,
Would
I mean,
Todd
just,
be able to
hey,
step in?
Todd,
Yeah.
in this worst case scenario, if all three
Right.
of us
Not
get
saying it's
sick,
gonna
are you
happen.
willing to
It's
step
just
up and help?
one of those
And,
oddball questions out there.
yeah, it would make, I just don't know how many meetings you three have together, and if you're meeting a lot, I mean,
It's just, right now, we have, the meetings we're in together are all Zoom.
okay.
And I really don't know if we'll go back to in-person meetings.
So maybe as long as you guys are staying up for me, I just, that struck me as something to think about, like, who is, cause I've been telling people, and I've told my husband who's a business owner, and it's always a motto at my work, I mean, who is your backup? It's an important time to think about who your backup is, and make sure your backup is trained, and you might want two backups, because you know, if you're in contact with your backup and you're both quarantined, who's gonna do the job that needs to get done? And so I really just think that the teachers need to even think, everybody needs to think about that. The other comment that I had about this was there's a pandemic section, and it was not very good. And I'm just wondering if we should just say for the pandemic that we should just reference our pandemic plan and not have anything in here. Cause I worry that this won't get updated with the most relevant information. It should just say, see our pandemic plan or whatever it's called, but in here it was, you know, it said something like if 50% of the kids are sick, they go home or something like that, which it just doesn't, it's not true to.
And I know that, a lot of this was from the, Homeland Security.
Yep.
And so that, it might be that Homeland Security has
They
not,
override everything,
Right.
I'm sure.
yeah.
Well, it's obviously old and it's not for COVID.
No, it's not, the pandemic in here is not COVID.
There, an epidemic, pandemic. And it just, I mean, I think that if this is truly a crisis plan, that it should maybe just direct them to the most recent, you know, document that we have for a plan, instead of somebody picking this up and reading something old. I would rather just have the information in one place and send them to that place.
We approve this crisis plan annually, so to put a statement in there under this heading to direct anyone to the most relevant current information seems appropriate. Next year, we can take it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, cause I mean,
So
in
a
the
couple
event,
things to update on it.
the absence by children is more than 50% due to the epidemic or pandemic, well, we're not gonna let it get to
No,
50%.
The plan in there was to address the COVID plan that comes up, not
Yeah.
to go with that, that's all.
Yeah, yep.
That was always the intention.
Okay, any other questions on that? Time and date for truth and taxation meeting, our favorite meeting of the year.
This will, need to be set at our next board meeting, and it will have to be our first board meeting in December. And so, the truth and taxation, will be held,
Third.
if you could scroll,
Sorry.
December 3rd at 6, so what we typically have done is, it says no earlier than 6 p.m., so what we've typically done is the first Thursday in December and held the TNT meeting at 6:30. So we have a half an hour to do other business, and then we recess and go into the truth and taxation meeting. And then if we have other business, then we can reconvene and finish out our board meeting after that.
And is that after every one of the township meetings? Because it'd be really beneficial if they had those first.
We have to do it within this timeline
Day
because,
requirement.
we have to approve it before December 28th, and so our second board meeting in December is the 17th, and you want to see the truth and taxation before you actually approve the actual taxation, so that you've got the 2 weeks in between to get any input from community members. And so this is the only time that
I think
we're,
those meetings with them at the townships are before that. Pretty sure they don't.
Is there any rules about that being online, a Zoom call? I mean, I'm just trying to think in advance. You know, obviously, if we're expecting people to come, we're gonna have to go to the gymnasium. Who knows if the school will be locked down, if that, you know, if we'll be distance learning, if we won't be,
I'm sure
We can handle that then.
MSBA will give us guidance.
okay.
Because MSBA is watching the Department of Health's every bi-weekly numbers as closely as we are, because they know that as soon as the county's numbers start bubbling up, they reach out and start asking those schools if they need some extra help.
So, just because I attended MSBA Q&A, sounded like their recommendation is for boards to really, if they're meeting online, to continue to meet online. And we're meeting in person already, so anyway, they've already said we should be still meeting online. I don't know for how long, but that was their caution, but they're very cautious, so.
And I understand where they're coming from, but I also know that, leadership comes from the top. And if we're asking staff to come back in and teach students face-to-face, it would be hard to say staff has to come in when the board is on Zoom.
I think as board members, we talked about this before, if you're not comfortable being here, we can Zoom you in.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
if they're, again, I want to remind people of that, if you're not comfortable being here,
Or you're sick.
or
Yeah.
you're sick, for sure, I don't want to see you, but, you know,
I have to say, it's nice to be in here in person.
it's nice to see you.
I mean, between the kids and the dog interrupting me, you know what I mean?
It's
Anyway.
nice to get away. Okay, any other questions on the truth and taxation meeting? And I'm sure as we get closer, we may be changing the way we do it, whether it be a Zoom meeting, who knows?
This year's teaching
You know,
us
this
to
year,
be
again, we've
flexible.
talked about it 10 times, we gotta be flexible, be able to change at any time. Maybe we plan one thing and then have to go to another scenario, we just wanna make sure that we're prepared for it, all of us. Okay, old business items for discussion and approval, paving project, which kinda jumped ahead of us here.
We got a heck of a deal from Dunn Asphalt. It's a division of Maffey. They got the contract to pave Lincoln Street, and then we found after the fact that they are paving a little bit of, I think is it a continuation of Jefferson? Or is it Washington?
It's Jefferson, yeah.
Jefferson. Okay, so, it makes no sense because it goes east and west, so therefore it should be a tree, but it's a president. So, they're, redoing that road with blacktop, so it makes sense to do the apron by the bus barn to help with the, water mitigation. And what they will do is, between where the road is getting paved and the front supports in the bus barn, they will pave that triangle and then, slant it so that the water is funneled to the slough away from the bus barn and away from the road. And so that will, help with the gravel in the bus barn, so we don't have to re-gravel all the time. And then the other thing that we got a quote on is the teacher parking lot. And since the faculty parking lot here, if you can see where the drawing is, where the cars are parked, that's going to be paved. There's some extra gravel, that extra gravel on the east side where the cursor is jumping up and down, thank you, Ann. That gravel will be removed and it will be seeded, so it's grass, because gravel is not a friend of blacktop. So we'll get grass next to it. That will get paved, but since 2/3 of that parking lot right now is paved, we can use long-term facility maintenance for 2/3 of that cost, and 1/3 of the cost is just new construction. So it's only going to be $7,000 basically for the new blacktop. 14,000 of that 21,000 can be used long-term facility maintenance. Right now, the potholes, as we were looking, Fred Krukow from Dunn Asphalt said he doesn't think we even have 1.5 inches of asphalt there, with 2.5 inches that will provide enough thickness, so there will be durability. They'll make sure it's all packed so that some of those potholes that keep coming up will be, because they're gonna scrape it all off and redo that foundation, so it's going to not be potholes. We're not going to have to pay for loads of gravel every.
Can Andy be in charge of that so that he sees that that's the, because 2.5 inches is borderline, but we really need somebody to supervise it from the school so that we're getting what they say we're getting. You know, blacktop is very critical of the depth that you have of it. And so, yeah, Andy can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, if he could just walk.
I'm sure you should want that anyway, so.
But I wanna, we've been talking about doing this for a long time, and we wanted to wait until they were doing another paving project in town. And then I found out that they were doing down by the bus barn, so this was the time to jump on it.
So, we have to approve that this evening. We have a motion to approve the paving project.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Second, okay. Further discussion, does anybody have any questions, concerns on that?
It will get done before school starts.
Okay. So, motion of second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. User fees and season passes for sport seasons?
And this is where we typically set these, and what I am, I've got the high school league, what they voted on August 4th, and there are so many moving pieces, and the seasons will have a 30% reduction in the number of contests, and the length is going to be reduced, the length of the season is gonna be reduced by 20%. And so we've got our season passes, which are not our season passes, our user fees, which are low compared to a lot of other schools. But right now, even though we have kids practicing, if they don't have contests, I don't wanna collect any user fees from them. But that would have to be, because typically before they're allowed to practice, we have requested the user fee for them to practice. So it would take board action to not collect user fees if practice is beginning, and only collect the user fee if the season actually happens.
Are you talking user fees here or the season passes?
I'm talking both. So the first part is user fees, and the second part is season passes. As Mimi said, we really can't have visitors. So there's no sense in having a season pass if you're not being allowed into the building. So I would like to not sell season passes until we know there's actually a reason for a season pass, and then at that point revisit what our COVID senior passes are going to look like. And that's because right now what we have in board action is that we should start selling season passes right now, and that's why it would take board action. Because Mimi said, why are we doing season passes? People can't come in the building. I said, yep, we've got stuff on the books, so the board has to act on this so that we're not doing this.
I'll make a
So,
motion that we don't have season passes at this point in time, and we could revisit at a later date.
I'll second that.
there's a motion and a second, further discussion, so that's just season passes.
That's just, maybe that motion is just on season passes, did you get that, Ann?
Yep.
Okay, so, a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, no,
User
user
fees.
fees.
Now, the question I have on that is if we're already signing contracts for coaches, the money that we get from user fees, correct me if I'm wrong, goes towards that.
It
So-
defrays it, it doesn't totally cover it, but it's once again,
I just want people to be aware of that.
Yes.
So if we're not gonna charge user fees, but we're having coaches coach,
but the coaches, if you look at the draft that was passed before, the coaches
Yeah.
might only get 10% of
Well,
their
I
salary if
understand
the
that.
season never
I
happens.
understand that. I'm just trying to make sure everybody's aware of where we're at with this. So even because we did the MOU on the coaching, where they're only gonna get paid for the time they're putting in, I just want people to know that if we don't collect user fees, not saying we won't have enough already, we don't get all their salary from that.
Well,
But
even if they-
when do we charge user fees then?
Even if they have a season, it's already been indicated that the season's only gonna be 70% at the most of their season. So then, we would have to reduce, to be fair with them, we'd have to reduce the amount that we're asking in the user fee. But
But
when
I-
to collect them, that, you don't have the season yet.
Right.
I don't
Well,
know,
could you do something like a quarter of the user fee now? Because.
25%.
Yeah.
Of the user fees.
Yeah, for a commitment that you're showing up to practice and we know who you are and whatever. And then the balance, whatever it is for the reduced season, would be collected if this competitive season takes place. Because the kids are learning presumably they're learning team skills under the mentorship of a coach, right?
And if you are having a season that's playing, I mean, you're gonna have to purchase football regardless of that, so you got that expense. Whether they play one game or 5 games, you're gonna need to have football out there.
You don't go through as much equipment. but
Right,
it's
right,
a
and
lot
that's why
easier
the
when
the
you're-
And
increased
the
cost.
transportation costs are non-existent.
But if you play football and you have that helmet, you gotta send it in and get it to field.
Well,
It's,
there's-
whether you play 1 or 5 games, it's gonna be the
yeah,
same.
you're right about certain things, but, you know, like, there isn't as much traveling.
Right.
You have less fees for referees that you have to pay for.
Have 0 fees for referees.
So the question is, and I was gonna go around the room, but since you asked, you're throwing it up there, Pete, and Mike Lean had a suggestion of charging 25% beginning of now. What is your thoughts?
But if
On
nothing
it.
else changes, then it would probably stay at that 25%.
That's kind of what she's saying, so as we.
I mean,
as we-
if the
Have a
season never
competitive season.
culminated,
Yeah.
if they never had that, then it would just stay at 25%.
Correct.
And she's absolutely right. You know, athletes are still coming in, they're still learning, the coach is still teaching them, things like that. So you're absolutely right there. You know, it's just,
What percentage are you thinking, the 25, you
I
think
think
would be,
that was a fair amount that Michael brought up.
Amy, your thoughts?
I'm wondering if this applies to all activities, like the arts as well, and I know they're not, like, one act and musical and speech. I think speech might be under the Minnesota State High School League, I can't remember what is and what isn't, robotics.
Speech is, one act is, musical is not.
But the only fees we collect are fees for activities that happen, not, you know what I mean? If we collect 25%, we're only gonna, if they're in football part-time, we're only collecting a fee for somebody to play football, like one act and stuff, those fees we aren't gonna collect. Right?
Well, I don't know, I mean, are you doing one act and just not going to competition? I mean, I
don't
don't know. Are you practicing speech and just not going to competition? So I think whatever you're deciding for athletics probably applies to the arts
Yes.
too. As a parent, I don't know, I mean, I think our fees are fairly reasonable and they max out, at $200 family, I think, and,
That's what they're.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I can see parents not wanting to pay the fee if they don't you know, I mean, I don't want it to be a barrier to somebody.
No, I don't want it to either, that's why I'm asking.
I don't think it
just
ever
wanna
has
get your thoughts on
been
Josh.
though, because even back in the days when I was here, if an athlete had a difficulty coming up with the money, we encouraged strongly that either the parents, if it was embarrassing for the athlete, the parents at least talk to the coach. And we never had an athlete,
I think they do have,
didn't have.
we have funds available for that, for
Right,
people
we
that
do,
cannot
we do, yeah.
run into that situation.
I think it should be all sports that are typically we charge a user fee for,
Mhm.
you know? And I don't know if we can isolate that to say just, Minnesota high school rate, because do we charge a user fee for like robotics?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Well, then it should be whatever we charge a user fee for.
Right, that's why we're saying
It's
25%.
different levels, you
It's
can
different
see there.
levels than what this is.
Right, but I
30%
mean, we
mark.
could still go
Right.
25% of whatever it is.
I do think it's good though to have something, cause I think it makes it more official that you're actually on the team. I paid, you know, paying your fee
Mhm.
means, you know, there's something about that and saying, yes, I'm on the team. I went through all the paperwork and did it.
And when do, like for sports, the physicals, do they come
Those
on
are-
file at the same time? So it's just a accountability, get their physical, get their contact information, all of that along with the fee?
The physical is waived this year.
Meaning you have to have one on file, but if it expires, you have a year to get it redone.
Kinda like
Because
the
of
driver's
COVID.
But
license.
if there's not one on file, you need
Yeah.
to have one? If it's a new student, new participant?
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
7th graders, yeah.
So, I mean, it just is that checkpoint
Mhm.
for some accountability things.
Josh? We'll back to you again.
I'm fine with the 25% as long as it's not confusing for the parents. I'm also, except soccer and cross-country, we're not gonna have any events until winter, so.
Oh, no, soccer and cross country, if anybody, the soccer kids, they have to pay their user fee. So the soccer kids, the high school soccer kids
So
will
they're
pay.
paying 70% then?
No, the soccer kids will pay $70 and the junior high kids will pay $60 for soccer because right now, the high school league said that soccer
They're
can
still
run regular.
So all we're talking about, Josh, is the ones that are not going full-time. They're just doing like the football, cause we know where that's going.
Volleyball.
Volleyball,
Yeah,
the ones that are not, the high school league hasn't deemed them okay to do. The ones that are okay
I
to
get it.
do,
Okay.
then they would be the full.
I'm fine with the 25, or I'm fine with delaying it until it gets closer to game time.
Mhm.
But I get what you're saying, they're learning something, they're having interaction with the team and the coach, so.
Okay. Ron, do you have any?
25% makes sense to me.
Okay. Team's good with that? So-
Yep.
Okay, it needs to be a motion.
So do we have a motion to approve the user fee to be set at 25%?
I'll make a motion to set the user fees for
Postponed.
the postponed sports,
And
at a
activities.
reduced fee of 25%.
And activities, please.
And activities at a reduced amount to 25%. Soccer and cross-country are exempted because they are not reduced, so. Or should we just say volleyball and football, because does anything else apply right now?
Well,
Well,
this
we got
motion
covered.
could, and
It
could
could
we have a
carry
second
through for
first
the other
before we?
sports.
No, just leave it as you had it,
Okay,
Michael.
Do I have a
yeah,
second?
and you'll figure it out, right?
Okay, we have a
I'm gonna do
motion
my best.
by Mike Lee. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Further discussion on it?
Is that, 25% if the season goes on, then is there?
Then they'll,
That probably needs to be included, that the balance of the fee approved by the board at the time the season goes forward.
Yeah, the 25% is not refundable, correct?
It's part of their fee.
Right,
Yeah.
it's, but it goes towards whatever the full fee,
If the season becomes fully active, then it.
but it's gonna be a reduced
But it'd
season
be a
in most
reduced season,
cases,
so we
so
have to
maybe
figure
the
out the-
fee will not be the full fee
Right.
anyway, because of a reduced season, right?
yeah, but you can act on it then when we
Yeah.
actually see what,
What
because
happens?
right now,
All we're saying is right now they give us the 25%, to get,
Yeah.
like you were saying, boom, 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 get into it.
Thanks for stirring the pot.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Elementary scoreboard repair.
And
We have,
This
need a
is-
motion to,
this is with the this is with the hope that we'll actually have, volleyball and basketball in the elementary gym this year.
but we're still getting the repair done, correct?
Yeah, cause we need to be ready.
So do we have a motion to approve this repair?
So moved.
We have a motion by Josh, do I have a second?
Second,
Jane, discussion.
Does this fall under long-term facility maintenance since we're repairing what's there, or?
I think it should, I will double check.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Batting cage, talked about this a couple times. We have a motion to repair the batting cage,
We're just gonna buy a new one, right?
Yeah.
Replace it.
replace the batting cage.
Yeah.
the frame, and that's okay.
And it's not exactly the same one that was there, because the one that was there, if we replaced it with like for like, we would probably have to keep replacing it because the storms would kill it. And so therefore, since it's not like for like, long-term facility maintenance not be used for it.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And then VA site crisis plan.
Motion to approve.
Okay, McLean. Second by Ron. Discussion.
Jean had pointed out the updated name changes, and those are all
Yeah,
made in there,
they're all
so
in.
we're good.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? MNBA handbooks. Got a motion to approve the handbooks.
So moved.
Second,
Motion made by Mike Lean, second by
I
Gene.
did tell Andrew that, online, there was just a couple things in there that, they were minor, I mean, they don't affect the handbook, just a little consistency, and, they switched to new role.
Yeah, from Blackboard Collaborate.
And some of those, they got a capital R enrolled, and some they didn't. So, just make that change to make it consistent.
Okay.
That must be a K-12 thing, right?
Yes.
K-12 must have, it's like, can't they figure out their video conferencing, so.
They keep trying to improve. That's a good thing.
Well, I had to go out and see what it was, to see which way it was spelled, because it was two different ways. So then I read about what it does and how it works.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Policies for second reading. Motion to approve the policies, 520, 601, 603, 606, and 616. Motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Michael. Discussion.
My only question, was, some of the verbiage, like in policy 601, which was school district curriculum, and 603, curriculum development, the language changed to refer to the committee that is responsible for those things. So is that the same committee or different committees?
No, that's the district advisory committee. The district advisory committee is our staff development, our curriculum, our world's best workforce. That's that.
That's your committee.
But it just, the language changed, so I didn't know whether it was,
The language
all-
changed, the committee did not.
thank you.
Any other questions? So we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Policy for third reading.
So moved, approved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. New business, items for discussion and approval. Elementary staff Chromebooks.
They're actually Dells.
Well, it's actually a Dell,
Yep,
I had it written on my
that's
other
all
one.
right.
So I have new computers going to the elementary staff of that.
For us to do distance learning, If a teacher does get ill, right now, we weren't going to replace their computers this year, we were going to have them go one more year with their desktop Macs, except if they've got desktops, and they have to do distance learning because there of a potential COVID outbreak in their classroom and everybody does distance, they need to have a laptop that can go home. Mimi did ask a question about the extra peripherals that go with this. Besides the laptop, they have to have a docking station so that their LCD projector, and a lot of them use Elmos, so those LCD projectors and the Elmos can stay connected to the docking station, and then their laptop can just dock to the docking station, and they don't have to worry about making sure that they've got the hookups correct for all the other presentation things that they need in their classroom. So that's the extra cost with each computer.
Some of that CARES maybe on some of this end because we need it.
Actually, what I was thinking is that the CRF funding. CRF funding should, I'm hoping there's enough there that the CRF funding should take care of that.
Are these the same type of computers the high school teachers have then?
Yes,
They're Dells too?
yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the purchasing of elementary staff computers?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Elementary student Chromebook cases.
We hadn't gotten Chromebook cases for the elementary students because remember, we were never gonna send those home.
Time will change.
And then they went flying out the doors March 18th or 17th, they all said. And so, Dependable Solutions was amazed at how little damage we had. However, that was just for a short period of time. Here we're talking a potential for a much longer time and a lot more movement back and forth. So for those computers in grade 2 through 6, we would really like to put cases on them just for a little extra protection.
so that case right there?
Yep.
They're heavy.
And the reason we don't have cases for the kindergarten and the first grade tablets, the cases that are made for that negate the tablet use. And so, and they would be really hard for little hands to get out of that case to actually use the tablet. The reason we bought those Chromebooks with the tablet feature was because of the tablet feature. I don't want to buy cases that eliminate the tablet use. So we're looking, there might be another quote coming at the next board meeting for if we can find a case that is easy for little hands to take off so they can still use the tablet. I think most parents would appreciate there's some extra protection on that tablet, especially with those littlest hands bringing them home. But we need to look for one that allows for the capability of the tablet.
And last year, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that junior high and high school, we had I paid money to get like an insurance policy. And then my kindergartner came home with a tablet with no case, right? And I don't think I had the option to buy an insurance policy for my kindergartner. And he was fine, right? I mean, we were very careful, but I was fully aware, you know, these have no insurance policy, these little kids, and my older kid did have it. So are we going to extend that?
The insurance policy,
Yes, okay.
yes, the
perfect.
insurance policy is gonna get extended through the elementary school. It's just, when we found out.
Yeah, I understand.
We had 2 days. There was no way we could get the insurance policy out to an entire school.
Yeah, I just think that if parents, given the choice, would prefer to sign up, all of their children for that, as opposed to, having to pay out of pocket to replace them.
Yep.
So I believe we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
On the Chromebook cases, no,
Did we
there's
get a motion on that yet?
we don't have a
We've been
motion or
talking so
second.
long, I
So
forgot.
moved.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Josh, we have a second by Ron. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Approval of, the base plan for the school opening?
And so for all of those people that logged on 75 minutes ago, this is the part you've been waiting for. There's a resolution, and the part you really want is this, keep scrolling, there, the very bottom whereas. Recommended that Learning Model 3, which is Scenario 2 from the Houston Public Schools COVID-19 Restart Blueprint, will be the base learning model to be implemented at Houston Preschool, Elementary, High School, and Summit Learning Center at the commencement of the 2022-21 school year. Learning Model 5, which is Scenario 3, Distance Learning, will be the year-long learning model to be implemented at Minnesota Virtual Academy. And thank you, Mimi, for catching that. What this means is with the hybrid model at the preschool, elementary, high school, and Summit Learning Center here on site, we still can have, as we're looking at 50% occupancy, we can still bring all of our students in. What this hybrid is for us is that students, all students will be on site Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. On Wednesdays, the high school students will do distance learning in the morning. They will go through and they will log on to each of their classes. Their classes will run consecutively 27 minutes apiece. So first hour will be from 8:30 until 9. Second hour will be from 9 until 9:30. Well, actually from 9 until 9:27. And so then they've got the 3 minutes to click off and then log on to their next class. That will be their morning. In the afternoon, the teachers will have time to reach out to students who are falling behind. The teachers will have time to do more planning for distance learning and to, let's be honest, the teachers will have time to really look at their own mental health and the mental health of their colleagues and see how everybody's doing. At the elementary school, that Wednesday, every student will be on site for a half day. So all the students will come here, we'll do the half day. They'll, both days lunch will be served. It will be a pickup for lunch for the high school students, and for the free and reduced price lunch students will get that lunch for free, and those that pay will need to pay for that lunch. It's not like last spring. The elementary students will eat before they leave, or will have that sack lunch that they can will take with them. And then the afternoon will be for the elementary teachers, much like the high school teachers, to do more planning for distance learning and to make sure that things are on track. And if the plan needs to be tweaked, at that point, they can talk about, okay, what's working, what's not working, and we can have a Wednesday afternoon kind of triage so that we can always make sure that we are adapting to what we're seeing and continually improving our plan. Questions?
We go pretty good, you and.
Yeah, so I have this little cheat sheet and I have it up here, I don't know if anybody out there would like it. So basically in the committee, we met quite a few times, and I get confused by scenarios and levels and all of that stuff. And so I just laid it out into a one-page so you could see what it meant. There were 5 levels from the state, and you could see that our first level is from 0 to 29. So I just didn't even include the first 2 levels. We just started with level 3. The committee said that they preferred to start at that level because of safety and consistency. So they felt that it was the safest model for the students and the safest model for the teachers and the staff. And it also provided consistency in that we think that we could stay in that model for a longer period of time. We didn't want to start a model and then, or level, or see, I get all the terms mixed up, but we didn't want to start at a certain level and then have to change right away. We thought that we could potentially stay in that hybrid for a while. So I thought the committee was really, really valuable, worked really well together and had lots of good input. So,
And for those of you wondering what our numbers are right now, the numbers got released today. Houston County's numbers went down slightly. The last 2-week rating, we were at 2.67, I think, and now we're down to 2.14. So it's still, we're over 2, but now it's slightly over 2. Part of our district, as the term is, flows into Winona County, so we also have to be cognizant of Winona County's numbers. Winona County's numbers also came down. The last 2 weeks, they were at 14.95, which is right in the middle of the 10 to 19, and now they're down to over 12. They're still over 10, but it's good that in the 2 weeks following the mandatory mask order, we're starting to see numbers coming down now, and there's always that lag time from the order going in and then the behavior starting, and then you start seeing the results in the numbers. So right now, technically, we could start at that, we could start with everyone back in and not have to follow the 50%. But as Mimi said, for safety, our staff didn't feel comfortable with that. And I think we might have had some staff saying, I'm not sure I'm comfortable coming back to this.
But we're not 50% though.
we are 50% capacity in the rooms. So we're lucky in that we have so few students and such a big space that
That lingo may confuse listeners.
Yes, yeah.
It's 50%.
All of it will, if there's lots of lingo.
It's 50% capacity based on the fire marshal's capacity rating. It's not 50% of our population.
Our current enrollment.
Right.
So,
Okay, my question was, for those opting not, they choose to keep their, out of safety, they're keeping their child at home, they have the distance learning, or they do not want their child to wear a mask, they get distance learning. So the teachers commented on that, they're more or less teaching a full on-site schedule besides this half day. Are they gonna be continually having their distance learning plan rolling with the on-site kids, so that, if you have these,
The schedule, and that's one of the nice things about the laptops we purchased. There are cameras and there are, the microphones built right in. They can actually set their laptop up and have it facing, and they could teach and have it streaming out. And the kids, it's the responsibility of the students to log on and watch.
so that's completely changed then. from-
well, but we, the free seats thing is,
Right.
yeah, no, it's approved. So we asked K-12, and was it 200 before?
We had 200.
They doubled it to 400. So
For
if
the
somebody wants, for the year, so if somebody does want to not come to school at all, and
And some have
MNBA
taken
is
us
a
up
good
on
option.
that. Yeah, I've heard some, but okay, another scenario then. They can start distance learning, they change their mind, they say, hey, I'm ready to get back in class, then they can jump right back in.
Correct.
And then they're not missing a beat. So that would be the difference in signing on to K-12.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Except,
Like if I chose to keep I started the year on distance learning, and then all of a sudden, a month in, I'm like, all right, junior.
We haven't talked about that as an option, honestly. We just anticipated if you said distance, that you would stay distant.
Well, I
So
wouldn't think
I'm
it would be that
just
big
being
of a
honest.
deal.
I don't know, I
Correct.
mean,
Fran? Or
You might have some line to bounce out too. They start on site and then they say, oh, the heck with that, I'm going on distance.
well, we will be adjusting based on levels as well.
I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying scenarios.
No.
No,
In
I
those
mean,
scenarios, I'm hoping that was part of the discussion when you planned this, both of those, and I'm sure the principals are right here. I'm assuming they've talked to their staff and said that to them. You may have kids that do just what you said, Josh. They're distance learning, the teacher's got their laptop on, because I have 4 kids at home from my normal class that are doing it, but then halfway through, 2 of those kids come back, or all 4 come back.
except that's why that's why we waited with the phone call until we could tell them what the base plan was, so that they could make an informed decision, because for a kid, consistency in education is the key to success.
I-
And if you've got somebody bouncing back and forth, that's not consistent.
I'm just saying though.
No,
is
it's good to have
that
the.
there was highs and lows, talking to parents, 1 minute, this is the best thing ever, next week, oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
and-
so, and
Oh, yeah,
that's the
you
other
heard it
thing
all
for
the
the
time, it
football.
was exactly, you're absolutely right, I mean, I heard it all the time, you had parents that were loving it, first week. Third weekend, they're like,
ebb and flow.
And Josh, the comment you made, well, this is totally different than what happened last spring, you're absolutely right. And the committee talked about the fact that, if we were going to do distance learning again, let's really look at what worked well with distance learning, let's look at what the issues were with distance learning, and take those issues and turn them into opportunities for improvement.
Okay.
And so that's why and that's for the parents to say, oh no, we have to explain, it's MNBA, or this is what distance learning would look like now, totally different than last spring, which, if you're going to make a decision, you have to make an informed decision.
So the other thing that I should point out on this, and for people that are watching online, is that we would start with a hybrid learning, so it would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, all on site. The Wednesday, half day for the elementary, Wednesday, half day distance learning for the junior high and high school. When we reach a certain level or threshold, a comfort level, we could go by these numbers on the sheet. I don't quite know what the trigger will be. But the next level would be that the elementary would continue as it is, and the high school, junior high and high school, would be completely distance learning. So what this is giving us by starting at this, our level 3 is we're getting the junior high and high schoolers, we're teaching them in person, we're making sure they're prepared to be successful in online learning as well. So that's really what's happening here at the beginning, because the next phase would be distance learning, and then if we go above a certain number, again, I don't know what the trigger threshold would be, but then it would be distance learning for all.
It's every 10, and so, that's why I talked about our county numbers right now. We would have to bump, in the chart, we would have to bump over 30, we would have to get to 30 or above for us to trigger a change. And right now, the highest number the Houston County has seen is just slightly over 10. The highest that Winona County has seen was the 14.9 of last week. And so, choosing this plan gives us much more wiggle room as far as the possibility of having many more cases and still not having to change a plan. And that's, the committee really talked about the fact that consistency is very important, and this might be a plan where we would be able to stay with this for hopefully, if possibly, we're hoping the entire school year.
But all that is, the caveat with all that is if we get a case in the school, everything changes, right? So that's why I was saying I didn't know what the trigger is. I mean, if we have 10 cases in the junior high or high school, we're not gonna be having class in the junior high and high school, and if you're in a pod in the elementary, that's the wonderful thing. If you do research right now, people are trying to even create their own pods. This pod system is what they think is going to be really successful, is a small group of kids with a teacher. And so I think the elementary is set up wonderfully, but if somebody in that pod gets sick, the pod might need to quarantine for 2 weeks. So if we can keep illness away, we're gonna be just fine. I doubt we're gonna keep it completely out of the area. So there's gonna be quarantines, people need to be prepared for distance learning. I can't say that we're gonna do this hybrid and it's gonna be fine and dandy for the whole semester. I mean, the virus is unfortunately in charge, and that being said, if everybody, follows all the steps and washes their hands and wears their masks, maybe we can do a good job keeping it out of the community.
so, we need to approve this evening. So, we have a motion to approve,
So moved.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion, any questions?
Yes, did the committee consider any alternatives to the 5 scenarios
offered by the state, like distance learning for a month, and we'll see how it goes, and then on a certain date, we'll go hybrid. I mean, some modification of the guidelines that came out, and did the committee consider any factors other than the case count numbers, or was there anything else that was a factor for our community, that the committee took into account?
Well, if we just use case numbers, we would be starting with, level 1, which would be everyone back in, and not social distancing. And so, yeah, the committee considered, there's 4 steps that we had to go through with our decision-making process, and we went through each of those steps. As far as, the first step is looking at those county numbers and seeing what we could do, and then we realized everything was open to us. And then it was looking at, with the county, what guidance do we have there, and that's, Deb Jurgensen, our school nurse, was looking at it and was talking about some safety things that she was concerned about, things that she was hearing, and so that's, some of the safety issues that we talked about. The staff, the elementary staff had a meeting, the high school staff was having a meeting, so it's those staff, we had a meeting with the paraprofessionals, so we could talk about, concerns with lunch, concerns with recess, concerns with, cleaning in the rooms. So all of that was, that health and protocols were all considered as well. We've had a lot of different, it took several meetings to come up with that hybrid model that everybody felt would be a good fit, would keep everyone safe, would provide that, the level of comfort that we could share with the parents and with the staff. We're fortunate that we just did the project with the HVAC at the elementary school and that we recommissioned our high school. So we can be bringing in the fresh air required, that we know we don't have, we've got the Akita box, so we're monitoring all the filters, and we know when those filters need to be changed, and we just changed filters. So we've got, those concerns that we have addressed, and the committee talked about those as well. So we're actually going up 2 rungs from where we could have, but the reason for that is, first and foremost, student and staff safety, and then being able to provide the consistency, because we talked about, as a parent, would you want your child to start school if you thought that in 2 weeks the plan would be changed, and in another 2 weeks the plan would be changed? So we wanted to provide that consistency where we're really hoping that the plan we're choosing from the get-go is a plan we can stay with for a long duration, so that there is some, we can create normalcy, that we can really start addressing the social and emotional needs of our students first, and then get to the academic needs. Because there are some kids that are watching the news, and they're scared. And there are some kids that, also need that, routine of being back in a school building. And so we are, once again, as a school, trying to do it all.
Was there consideration of fewer than 4 days in person and more days online? And it was decided that 4 days was, that the 4 days were needed for in-person? There couldn't be something like kindergarten through 4th grade maybe being in person, and 5th and 6th grade, who can handle computers better, being on a less in-person and more hybrid type situation. Because we say in education, Maslow before Bloom's, which means yes, the school has to take care of the social, emotional needs, but before they can learn anything. And I fear that no matter what we do, we're gonna have have a bit of a lost learning year. We need to be planning right now for how we're gonna catch everyone up when everyone is safe past this. But, we live in the southeast corner of the state. The virus doesn't care about county lines or county numbers. We have no testing site in Houston County. There is a testing site in Rushford, but you have to have symptoms to go be tested. So there are lots of asymptomatic carriers who will be coming together potentially, and those are concerns of mine, is what's the testing strategy? Are we gonna wait for a case? Or how can we screen and find our asymptomatic carriers or prevent that from happening? So yes, consistency can happen for students and families. Families just wanna know what the plan is and then be given the resources to support their kids, and we may need to, make house calls or figure out what those resources are for certain kids and certain families. But those are my concerns. It's not what you're doing. I think the plan in the building sounds awesome. I am concerned about the community, and bringing people together. And families that live with people with comorbidities or that rely on elders to provide daycare and watching little kids. Kids thankfully do not typically get as sick, but they harbor the virus and they can transmit the virus. And I don't want to see any kid get sick, but I don't want to see any family in this community get sick either. So those are my concerns, are county-wide, more than just case count. And I know that you've worked hard on those things, and so I assume that that's gone into the decision making. But I am cautious.
And actually, the hybrid model that we finally agreed on, and the hybrid model that the planning group is recommending, that we were talking about a Monday, Tuesday, or an every other day. We were talking about having, how many different hybrid twos did we have in there?
We got lost in a lot of, it was very hard to,
I think with
first 3 or 4 meetings, we're just throwing out ideas, right? And I'll let you speak in just a second, Josh. So we talked about all the different plans, and, before we settled in on this one, I do think the area that we didn't talk about that you brought up is, and again, I think it's that it's not my area of expertise, and maybe public health needs to help us, but what is the trigger? So if we have a case, what do we do? 1 case, then this happens, and 2 cases, and then we have to switch to the next level, even though the case, like what happens? How do we navigate this plan? We didn't, because we only met 1 time after the governor released it, I think. So we weren't really expecting it. And so we quickly came up with all of our research and how it would apply, but we haven't really figured out all of the guidelines, so that if Print has no playbook, let's put it that way, right now. They say, if this happens, then this happens.
And I will get that on August, as I said, August 24th.
Yeah, and I don't have the expertise to write the playbook. I can't even pretend to, so.
Well, and they're really telling us not to, because on August 24th, when we actually get that regional team, and at that point, we're going to get those guidelines.
Josh,
I'm sorry, Josh.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, Michaeline, I hear you on the caution. I think what we have here is the flexibility of the parents to make that choice about their kids. And the other thought too is that we're gonna see this nationwide, your exact scenario. Everyone's gonna be dealing with this to see how this unfolds. The other thought too is the majority as surveyed, and people that, as far as fellow parents, they're willing, they want their kids to go in. They want them back in the building with their teachers. And I think it was a real appreciation for what the teachers provide, as far as education, as far as support. The kids really look up to them. So that was a huge compliment to them, that we as parents aren't cutting it, So But, you know, so the other thing is that I wanna go back to this, we did such a great job last year of on the fly switching gears. And, you know, it was a lost year, you know, a crash ending, but it went really well, and from my standpoint. You know, and if it's improved, as far as the distance learning I'm hearing, I'm really excited about that, you know, so. I say we, you know, we're on the, you know, we're ready to make a change, you know.
But yeah, I agree that for parents to have the option to go distance or in person following the hybrid plan is awesome. I'm thinking from a teacher's chair.
Yeah.
And our staff needs to be safe, and we need to be conscious of how much work we're asking them to do when 2 or 3 students in their pod choose something different. This is a mental health, this is a work, this is a concern.
I agree with you. I was right. That was my question earlier in the evening. Is like you're almost asking dual duty. You got some kids at home, and you got your students right here in class. That will be a challenge for those teachers. So
It's not a fun job for these teachers. This is horrible to have 2 scenarios that you're trying to teach you. And you've got some kids that are gonna stay home, and they're gonna stay home because, like I've talked to them in other communities, they're staying home because they don't want this. They don't want like, okay, this week you go to school. Well, we had somebody with, you know, COVID-19, you gotta stay home now for 14 days. They don't want that. They want consistency. And in talking to the cops in the area, and the cops even over in Wisconsin, which I have quite a bit, the child abuse has gone way up in the homes. And you've got suicides have gone way up, fortunately not in this county. Kids are different than we are. They need each other. They need to socialize. And I think we've got parents that are totally frustrated with having to play teacher. They didn't go to school for that. They don't want to do that. And so that's difficult for them too. Obviously, we're concerned about the safety. That's first in our minds. That's first on everybody's minds. But when we talk about safety, there's a whole big picture of safety. And it has to do with all these other things that I just brought up that we've got to look at, and we've got to make a judgment on behalf of all of that. And that's tough. It's tough, and it's tough for a teacher too. And like I said earlier, the teacher, and I was one, they're being called essential workers. Well, so are the nurses. And the nurses were forced back, and they had to be there. And it's sad that we have to be there with our teachers, but I'm not sure how else they can do it. You know, it's difficult.
And speaking to one of your concerns, in the blueprint plan that's online, the longer one, there is a chart from the Department of Health that families can actually, it's a worksheet that they can fill out so they can have their COVID preparedness plan. So if somebody does get exposed, what is their plan as a family? So they can talk through it, kind of the way we used to send home fire planning. So if you have a fire in your house, where do you go? Where's your safe? Who takes the kids? Where else can that happen? It's the same kind of thing where they really did talk about, and it's a safe way as a family, without scaring anybody, to just really talk about, hold on a second, we didn't think about this. Where is if one of the parents comes down with COVID, what does happen with the kids? If one of the kids gets exposed to COVID, how is the family? Because as a school, our families are our partners. And so just as much as we're trying to keep the students and the staff safe and well here, we have to help the families any way we can to keep the families safe and well at home. And so that guide that we've got in the plan is one of those ways that they really can start talking about their plan in case, so they can be proactive instead of reactive, and also talk about okay, if we don't wanna get here, what can we do as a family to make sure that we don't ever have to use this plan, if possible?
So, anyway, a lot of discussion, a lot of moving parts, I believe. Good information.
Now, the plan says that on Wednesday, then they'll be sanitizing the building, and on weekend sanitizing the building. So that's good.
It's a deep clean, it's getting sprayed down with QT24 every single, we've got the planning, guide in the long plan. So we don't have actual times yet, but we've got number of times per day. So then when, school is starting, we're going to be, Andy and I are going to be looking at what staff do we have, what time does it work to sanitize this building, so it's newly sanitized before students come in, and then sanitize middle of the day, and coming up with a schedule for each of the classrooms, coming up with a schedule, to do hallways. The drinking fountains are getting disabled, so that there won't, the only thing you'll have is a bottle filler, and even the bottle filler part is going to, in case there's a hand that touched it, that's going to be sanitized, multiple times during the day. The classrooms will have like Clorox wipes, so that the desks can be wiped down. There will be hand sanitizer stations in every single classroom, so the kids, it'll just be, the kids got used to it, signing up, coming in line for lunch, pump hand sanitizer, rub it on. They just knew that they couldn't be in the lunch line without getting hand sanitizer. Now it's just gonna be, hey, you're coming into a classroom, sanitize. We're gonna go through a lot of hand sanitizer, but that's okay. I would rather have germ-free hands than, to quibble about the cost of hand sanitizer.
So we do have like a fogging machine that,
Yes,
place,
we've got
'cause I know
we've got
some
a
school
victory,
boards were purchasing them now.
we've got a victory sprayer.
Okay, yeah.
It's not, it's a over-the-shoulder one, so
Yeah,
yes.
that's the one that was
I had a couple
branded to
parents
us.
say, okay, what chemicals are in those sprays?
It
Yeah,
kills,
and- Okay.
it kills coronavirus.
Aerosol and droplet
Yeah,
and close contact is way more how it's transferred than surfaces. Not that high-touch surfaces don't need to be cleaned, but people in the building.
So,
But that's what, high-touch surfaces are cleaned multiple times during the day, and then, yep.
Understood.
so we have a motion, we have a second, no more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to do a roll call vote.
Okay, that's good, fair enough.
Roll call vote, Michaeline,
No,
Jean,
Yes,
Ron? Yeah. Tom, aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. Resolution accepting a donation from the American Legion.
And we still haven't gotten anything yet.
I'll make a motion to gratefully
We're trying
accept
to track it down.
the donation from the American Legion for expenses for COVID-19 equipment purchases.
I second that.
So we have a motion with a second, discussion. So we all wanna thank them for the donation,
Much
we appreciate it.
gratitude.
Very supportive, so. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Announcements, important events, back to school.
Back to school sessions, the principals are working on, the back to school sessions, so it will be, parent information sessions as well. They're putting that together, information will be coming out, but right now we needed to know what the plan was, we need to get a little more information from the state, but that they're in the planning process.
Can I mention something with those back to school sessions, and I think I mentioned it in the committee too, but just as a parent, and I think I mentioned it to Rick as well, you know, it's really different this year, like, it seems like it's more difficult to go school shopping. We don't know if we should go school shopping, what we're going to need, if we're gonna need masks, are we gonna need Clorox wipes, or we don't need Clorox wipes, are we gonna need to bring, you know, still bring the paper plates, and it's just, 2 sets of everything, so I think that, you know, I'm anxious to get that list, and also I'm hoping it says, you know, like, to help me be successful, if my student needs to be at home, you should probably have this at home too, maybe. You know, should I buy 2 of them, like last time, I had no scissors, I mean, I was ill prepared, so I would like to be prepared, but it seems like it's more difficult if you know, we might order online or
Sooner
whatever,
than later
so.
is what you're saying, so I
I'm
think,
thinking parents, I'm starting to get anxious, and so I'm guessing other parents are probably anxious as
good.
well about, just, you know, there's all this stuff, we've talked about some training for the parents and taking temperatures of kids and just what's expected and how do I, you know, how do I sign my child in and out, just certain things have changed and it's just enough that we just need to make sure we educate the parents and they're comfortable, but school supplies is one of those things too that's just in the back of my mind. And I'm sure it's on other parents' minds as well.
I'm sure both principals will probably be coming up with a list of,
Can I?
yeah, go ahead, Rick.
My staff has been meeting every Monday via Zoom, and that's one of the things we've talked about, a pared down list for what needs to come to school, and then preparation for what happens at home. Some of the things we need to talk about is, I don't know if we're gonna ask for Clorox wipes, they're gonna be hard to find, and certain things, and we're gonna cut down on some of the things. The shared items won't be shared anymore, so all of the teachers are looking at revising their class list that went home with report cards. But again, all of that information usually comes out the week after hoedown. Hoedown didn't happen, so it's going to have to come out later.
One thing I did get a question from somebody online who said that she saw on Facebook that we were going to charge a COVID fee. We are not going to charge a COVID fee. There's not going to be a supplied COVID fee.
There might be.
I have not heard that.
Somewhere
No.
else. Because other schools do different things.
Because we have a school.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so, from a high school standpoint, you know, we are also starting, next Tuesday, every Tuesday, the high school staff is meeting as well. And really what we're wanting to do is look from the student family perspective as we start to send out communication. And as we look at, like a Wednesday back to school night and plan that out, to prepare students to be successful before they step foot in the building. So to do everything possible in advance, so families and students will know kind of what they're coming into. It's gonna be challenging, you know, and we just wanna open up our arms and get kids in the building, and we know there's gonna be a learning curve for kids. We know there's gonna be a learning curve for families, but everybody's in the same boat saying, let's set them up for success, so.
And when he says open our arms, that's for virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs. Yeah. No hugging at the door.
So I think what maybe he's getting at though too is sooner than later.
Yep.
You know, like Rick, you said, maybe it'll be a little bit for your list to go out
Well,
there.
we have to also find out who's actually physically coming back, which will adjust the class list of the students in the room. And so once we know that, then the teachers will be sending out a personal letter from them, greeting the student as we've done in the past.
Okay.
So all of that will go out, but it's not gonna go out right away because the teachers, I guess I'd rather have it ready to go rather than make a change after it goes out.
So this might be slightly off track, but since we're talking about back to school sessions, are the calls being made to parents, are those starting tomorrow? Are they starting on Monday? When are they? Monday, okay, so parents all should expect a call asking if their child will be coming back. If they'll be riding the bus.
We start with the bus, we're starting with the bus list, and then we go to the walkers. The people that walk to school, we don't.
So on the buses, is there a suggested, how do we fall if everyone says, yeah, my kid's riding the bus?
Then we need to, that's why we've got a bus driver here.
But what I'm saying is, so are we making the suggestion, those that have a viable option to school, take it?
There are some parents that have already told me that they're not comfortable with their child riding a bus, so they will be bringing them in, but I need to have that, like, in the official phone call instead of just a.
Yeah, because what we don't want, because I know Corinne and I had this discussion, I don't mean to jump in, Corinne, but what we don't want is for these guys that are driving the bus, you know, all of a sudden Wednesday or whatever day it is, Johnny decides he's gonna take the bus in.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be on the bus, you're gonna be on the bus. it's not gonna be, I'm changing my mind in the middle of the day, I'm changing my, you know, we can't do that.
That would be good, we should
What we
just
need
make
to
that
do is,
rule
it should
moving
be written
forward.
down, you know, all my kids are getting on the bus, or none of my kids are getting on the bus. It shouldn't, I mean, cause I know in the past, we've had it where a parent will call and say, oh yeah, I'm not gonna make it home, can my kid get on the bus?
The
I don't think
Norwegian
it's fair to the bus
Yeah.
drivers to have to deal with that, because, you know, they kinda set their.
No, that's a
mind.
good
Right.
rule, just moving forward, that would make life a lot better for transportation.
Well,
My
that's-
family would never do that.
My
Yeah.
gift to Steve is that we're gonna drive the kids in because my little ones are not gonna sit. Helen said, if I have to sit by my siblings on the bus, well, that's no fun. So we're just gonna drive them in and then that just allows more space on the bus.
Oh, no, that's very much
So, I mean, I
appreciated,
love our bus drivers, my kids love their friends on the bus, but you have to realize a bus ride is different and they're gonna
Mhm.
have to sit with their siblings, they're gonna have to sit apart.
And that's part of the phone call, I think it needs to be, you know,
Yeah.
if you're gonna be on there, you gotta understand that family members can sit near each other, but it's not gonna be Johnny and Billy
Yeah.
sitting next to each other, beating up Susie in front of them.
Yeah, or licking their friends, which I hear about, yeah, so.
Alright.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
no,
won't
you don't
be
wanna
any
know.
of that anywhere.
You don't wanna know what my kids,
Okay, so,
like I said, it's a gift.
anything else on that? Okay, meeting and committee updates, we had an online meeting, and it was an HVED, so let me start with the online committee meeting.
Oh, yeah. So we had an enrollment update, enrollment is up, there's a lot of marketing occurring as well, so we expect enrollment to continue to be higher. We have the free seat usage, for district students, again, that was doubled from 200 to 400. An elementary student though, each class is a seat each semester, so they're, how many, if they did full-time?
If they did full-time for a full year, that'd be 12 seats.
12 seats per elementary, child. And then also, because it's related to online, I saw an ad on Facebook today and it was, for the DCA and it said, sign up for this link, to learn more about becoming a contact tracer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's so cool that our career, or destination, our DCA is, kind of, exposing the kids to some of those experts in that area, real life, real time. So anyway, I was very impressed with that. So I think marketing is going well. Again, enrollment's up, it's just a matter of how high is it going to go. So, as schools release their plan and people want consistency, are they going to choose MNBF?
Not like what people are saying.
Yes.
We're up 455 already.
As of right now, and more schools, I think, are informing their families this week, and maybe next week, so we'll probably see another jump. So, any questions on online? Okay. Gene, you have HVAC, do you have any?
We had the HVAC meeting, didn't have too much, I guess, Hoka, they have 10 students registered already. Scott Moline is heading that one, he's our contact. Isn't Scott anymore?
Not anymore.
Who we got now?
Tracy Tweetin-Lynn.
Oh, okay, Tracy, that's right. Tracy took over on that for one. And, they're looking at, the testing for our, doing testing with the school. And they're looking at, getting a site, performance solution, online, thing, and they didn't know about the, accuracy of that, so we're checking into that. Need to have a webcam, and I noticed in our handbook that it says all students must have webcams on there, so the Hiawatha Valley said that they would send them out a webcam if they didn't have one, but they won't have to then. But that's where they're at, they find somebody testing was the concern that they had for the accuracy, but making sure that the results are accurate and the parent isn't helping the child or anything.
Does anybody have any questions on HVAC?
Did you have any more on that, Corinne?
No, the superintendents met on Tuesday. It was just 2 days ago. And we were just talking through some of these things. Opportunities.
Okay, so any feedback, thank yous for your agenda items?
Tom, I attended the first session of the MSBA summer session. They're doing it on 3 successive Wednesday nights for 2 hours. Last night was the first 2-hour session. I can wait till it's all done to give a report, or I can.
Oh, no, yeah, make sure that you do, I was thinking of that earlier when Ann and I discussed it, when I was talking about it, and it wouldn't work for me anyway, this circumstances. But I
Well-
appreciate you going, but if you wanna give an update tonight, and we can
It'll,
follow up.
just to let you know what was discussed, last night the keynote speaker was a PhD from, West Des Moines. She operates an organization called Please Pass the Love. Her talk was on ways school boards can improve school mental health. There was a lot of talk about school mental health issues. She had a great website and offered a lot of resources, which I think our professionals probably have access to. She wasn't able to attend because she's actually a school board member, and they were having an emergency board meeting last night, so she had to record her keynotes talk. And then we also talked about school board advocacy. And I also attended the MSBA Q&A, which was school board members were invited to attend last Saturday, and I think the Thursday or some day before that. And they did talk about how they will be updating all of the legislative policies that need changing. That'll be coming out. This Terry Morrow, who Corinne alluded to, talked about that. He also talked about the mask mandate. And so anyway, that was what we had the first night. I'm not sure what's next Wednesday night, but I'll report at the next meeting on the next 2 sessions.
Okay, I appreciate you spending that time, that's very nice of you. So, anybody else have anything else to say?
Is there anything about Joe's?
Yeah. Do we know anything?
I think you'd be the best to speak
On Joe's,
scholarship.
the scholarship, as you all know, maybe you don't, Joe Craig passed away Tuesday morning, unfortunately. And, the family is putting together a scholarship to give out next year. So, as you know, we sometimes as board members, we donate to those type of things, so. If you do have questions on it, concerns, I think she's gonna be getting with you, probably next week, maybe. She's got a few things going on this week with, Joe just passing away, so.
Have any arrangements been made?
Yeah, it's set up, they're gonna have a drive-through at the fire department on, tomorrow's Friday.
Friday evening.
Friday, 5 to 8. They want you to come in on the back road, Old 16, and then go through this way so you can come out. So they're trying to keep traffic flow properly. And then they're gonna have the funeral, which will be very, very limited because of COVID. So unless you've been told you're going, you probably won't be going. They said if you wanted to stand outside, they're gonna try to set up a speaker system. If you wanted to be outside of the church.
I think it's gonna be line stream too.
Yeah, they're trying to work that out. I think somebody's working on that. So there's, other than that. So, we don't have anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a second. Second by Ron. Further discussion?